I'm not meant to be working today, but at least I have the help of a certain someone, don't I, Oscar? Oscar. Hi and welcome back to my channel. I'm Simon and this is the start of my third and final reading vlog, reading through the Women's Prize for Fiction Longlist 2025, the 30th Longlist. And I have four to go and one to talk to you about. So I've got 5 so far. You'll have seen me read, I've got to do the maths now, 10. I'm skipping 1. I talked about that in the last video, so I'll link that down below along with the first reading the Women's Prize Women's Prize for Fiction Longlist vlog. But before I do that, well, honestly, it's already going awry. But before I do any of that, I thought I would just mention, as I've just filmed the unboxing of it, the very exciting Women's Prize for Non-Fiction shortlist. I think this shortlist sounds incredible. I've been watching my mum reading the entirety of the longlist and she's really enjoyed it, and she's really enjoyed these books. A couple of them less than maybe 4 of them, but still, I did a video talking about my thoughts on this, which I will link down below if you want to see it. The one thing I forgot to say in that video is that I never like to say, oh, I'm disappointed in something, because it sounds so negative when actually it should be celebratory of the 6 books on the list. I was a little bit sad not to see Ootlin by Jenni Fagan on the list. So I'm going to be reading this within the first week after having finished reading the Women's Prize for Fiction longlist. I think I'm going to do a vlog or maybe 2 of reading some of my most anticipated books, or some of the books that I'm most excited about. Now, moving on to the 5 books that I haven't talked about so far.
I think I've already said this, but yeah, I decided to read 15 out of the 16 books. And
these are the 5 that I hadn't talked about. Now, sadly, one of these has been a DNF. My first DNF, though, of the entire longlist, which is pretty good going. I wonder if you can guess which one it is, because I have mentioned it at some points. There is one of these books that I'm very nervous about. However, the other 4 I've been super duper excited about and been saving sort of till last. Well, I'm very sad about this because it's one of the books that I was super duper looking forward to, and the one that I had heard nothing about before it was longlisted. It's Somewhere Else by Jenni Daiches. And the reason that I picked this to read, and I gave it the journey back from Manchester to Liverpool last night after I did an event with the wonderful Alex Hay, Amelia Hart and Laura Jones. I'll pop a picture of them there. It was a real treat, and those are 3 corking historical novels, and actually linked to why I picked this one, because I'm very much back on my historical fiction train. That sounds wrong. But yeah, I'm back into historical fiction. I mean, I've always loved historical fiction, but I haven't read any for quite a while. And so because I've read quite a lot of great historical novels recently, and because the book that I'd read before this one on the long list was Tell Me Everything by Elizabeth Strout, and that was quite contemporary, I wanted something completely different. So this is set in the early 1900s, where we meet Rosa on the night that her family are killed. And we then follow her as she goes from Poland to London and then Scotland, and is adopted by a couple. And the problem that I had with this was that the writing became both repetitive and slightly overwritten. So, for example, in fact, I'll give you an example to start with. When they come, she gets up and goes to the window. She's been forbidden to go to the window, but that is what she does. I found something really clunky about that, and also that gets repeated about 3 times in the first 30 pages, which is the amount that I gave this book because I was on a speedy train from Manchester to Liverpool last night. I treat myself. There's other moments, like, in fact it's only on the next page, there is a wailing cry like the howling of a distant wolf. Rosa has never heard a wolf, but she knows that they howl in the forest. So wolf is repeated, howl is repeated, but a cry and a howl aren't the same thing, but she's never heard a howling wolf anyway. So I don't know, this kept tripping me up, and you'd sort of be introduced to characters and there might be some random foreshadowing, which I often quite like in fiction, where, you know, a character comes onto the page, and then the author will say in the next sentence like some big life moment for them in years to come. That I can really enjoy, but here for some reason it kept tripping me over and I kept having to reread pages. And because reading this long list is not work, this is something that I'm doing for fun and obviously sharing with you along the way, I am applying the rules of just reading in general, and as if something isn't really working for me, I'm not going to finish it. I don't think it's good for me. I don't think it's good for me as a reader, and I don't think it's fair on the book or the author. So I've decided to stop. However, if it gets shortlisted, I will go back to it because I want to be able, with Mum, to do the shortlist ranking and our winners' predictions for both the Women's Prize for Fiction and the aforementioned Women's Prize for Non-Fiction. So those are videos that Mum and I are planning on doing coming up. So yeah, a real shame because I was really, really intrigued with this one, but I think it's just a case of not the right book for me. Potentially right now, potentially not at all. We will see. That leaves me with these 4 books. I think I'm going to head for Good Girl by Aria Aber first, which is the one that I've been a little bit nervous about, only because I've heard really mixed things from different readers who I know, follow and trust. And so yeah, that's made me a bit nervous of it. Plus, it is, well, it sounds really bad. It's set in Berlin, which is somewhere I've always wanted to go, and yet weirdly, I'm never that thrilled about reading about, and I don't really know why that is. I wonder if it's because in my head I associate it with World War II and studying that so much at school, which I've talked about loads. I mean, it's important to study, but we don't seem to learn from the past. But anyway, moving on, that the other thing that has kind of put me off this is the fact that it's very much about hedonistic drug taking, and nothing could make me, if I'm really honest, roll my eyes. I don't know why I just did that then, the wrong thing. In fiction, I find it really, really eye-rolling. I did hear on the grapevine that Aria is a poet, and I tend to really love novels by poets. But yeah, so I'm going to head to this one next, and then we'll see which ones of these I want to head to after that. We'll see how I get on with it. I'm going to curl up with this, a couple of biscuits and a cup of tea, and give it a whirl and see how I get on. No major plans for the rest of the day. I have been at work this morning. I wasn't meant to be. However, yesterday I got offered a big new exciting project at work, and so yeah, I needed to log on and kind of help with the sort of setting up of that and working out my hours and things like that. But anyway, I'll talk about that more in due course. This is going to be next, and I'll catch up with you when I've read some of it. And if it's not later today, well, it won't be tomorrow morning because I'm off to the farmer's market that Chris has got a stall at, selling his wares, his sauces and chutneys and jams, which is very, very exciting. And also Pip and her husband Andy are going to come to support him because Chris and Andy have a very, very lovely bromance going on, frankly. Me and Pip don't get a look in when we're all together. And then we're going to go for brunch, which will be really, really nice. So that is the foreseeable... What was I going to say? That's the foreseeable future. That's what's coming up. I'll take you along with me if I don't speak to you before, but I will speak to you, when I've got something to say about this and what that is. But yeah, once I've got something to say about this. Wow. Bye for now. Morning everyone. It is Saturday. Where are we on our way to, Chris?
My show!
We're off to West Kirby Farmers Market, where vintage kitchen
But I got a show!
or just has a stall. So that's nice. I'm going to be there for some of it, and I'm also going to go and have a pootle around West Kirbois.
Pootle, such a lovely word.
Pootle.
I like a pootle.
I like a mooch or a pootle.
Ooh.
Lovely. Oh look, lovely brunch buddies. Delicious, delicious. Hey everyone, we are here again. Have we been here in this video? No, I don't think we have. I feel like I've filmed here quite a lot over the last week or so. Anyway, moving on. I am back from West Kirby. Had a lovely time having brunch with Pip and Andy. Chris's best farmer's market yet. So people were queuing at the beginning for his Bakewell jam. So there we are. And I also managed to get myself a really, really incredible looking curry to have tonight, as Chris is now at work for the rest of the day, which means I can do a lot of reading. But before that, I thought I'd have a catch up on what I have been reading, which is Good Girl by Aria Aber, which I almost team with the theme, frankly, here. I have been so pleasantly surprised by this book, which follows Laila, who is a 19-year-old girl who lives in Germany. Sorry, the doorbell just went. Books, can you imagine? Anyway, so yes, what was I saying? Oh, speaking of books, I felt really bad. I went into West Kirby bookshop and didn't buy any books. Shame on me. Moving on. So Laila is a 19-year-old girl who has grown up in Germany. Her parents are Afghan, and this looks at what it's like to grow up somewhere that has been very split over race in its history. She lives in a sort of council block where there are swastikas on the walls, and it looks at how she is also dealing with grief after the death of her mother and turning to alcohol, drugs, sex. And on one of these big nights out that she goes on, she meets Marlo, who is a writer from America. She wants to be a photographer. He also does photography. There's a lot in here about art, which occasionally with Marlo is getting a little bit much, but hopefully that'll sort of ease itself out. I mean, Marlo is awful and really, really, really tricky character. And there's something that I'm wondering if Aria is trying to say about America through him, or a particular aspect of America through him. I also feel like there's a slight fetishization in their relationship, and that is really interesting. There's a queerness to this book. There is a very unflinching look at what it is like to be different, which is done in a really frank and quite uncomfortable way, but uncomfortable in the right way, if that makes sense. There's also, and this should be what I should have been talking about first, frankly, some absolutely stunning writing in here. There's some that I will say around art, like I've mentioned, that I'm not really so sure about, but there are lines and paragraphs in here that are just stunning, and you can really tell that Aria Aber is a poet. And as I have mentioned before on this channel, I think maybe even in this video, I tend to really love novels by poets, and so far I am really, 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 is enjoying the right word, because it is, like I said, uncomfortable, and also there is, quite a lot of hedonism, which is just, I don't know what it is about that. I don't tend to mind it so much on TV. I don't love it even on TV, actually. In non-fiction, I seem fine with it. There was something about sex parties or clubbing and drugs, or all of those things combined, that really just doesn't do it for me. However, I am finding it not bearable. I don't want to sound like a massive old prude. I'm nearly 43 though. But this is I was going to say doable, but that also sounds a little bit wrong. But it's not grating on me. And I'm kind of just so interested in Laila and the complexities of her life and her situation, and I'm definitely invested. So there we are. On that note, I'm going to head to a bit more of that. Going to probably catch up with a bit of Booktube, because I have not been watching Booktube at all for ages, and I think Natalie has dropped a really long video that I can have with some lunch and just chill out. But yeah, my main aim for the rest of the day is to finish this, or at least get just almost halfway. So yeah, get at least almost done, because off to the Lake District tomorrow, and I have quite a tight deadline of reading the long list of books I haven't read yet, with the exception of one. So there we are. Right, I'm shutting up. We'll catch up with you when I catch up with you.
I'm here to tell you that I'm 126 pages into Come to the Edge by Joanna Kavanagh, and it's great.
Hey everyone, it is now Sunday and I am running late. I meant to already be in the car on the road because before we head to the Lake District we're going for dim sum, and we should have left about 15 minutes ago, but I still wasn't ready, and we're gonna have a nightmare because there is an Everton game on at the new ground, which is right near where we have dim sum, and so it's going to take forever. But before I leave, I wanted to have a catch up with you about what I finished, but also which books I am going to be taking. So I have finished Good Girl by Aria, Aber, and I thought this was overall really well done, and in some parts absolutely beautifully written. I didn't expect to like this, as I mentioned, because it was about being young and partying and sex and drugs, and I'm no longer a youth, as we know, because I'm turning 43 tomorrow. But so I didn't basically think I didn't think it was going to appeal to me. However, what this book does in terms of look at what it's like for someone who feels displaced, both because of grief, because of their cultural background, because of being different from the people around them where they are, being interested in different things from their peers, and just sort of spiraling and trying to work out who you are in the world. I thought this was really well done. As I mentioned, I could have done without Marlowe so much. He's a really pivotal character, but at the same time, I think sometimes he went on a bit. There's a lot in here that was a bit art-centric, and as we've discussed many a time on this channel, if you've been around for a while, I'm not the biggest fan of books around art, although The Artist by Lucy Steeves, which is on this long list, I think is one of the best books I've ever read around art for so many reasons. You can head back to one of my previous vlogs to hear me talk about that more, or indeed, I'm sure I'll be talking about that more when I do my predictions for as I go through all of the books and whether I think they will be shortlisted or not, or whether I would shortlist them or not. Anyway, back to this. This has been a real surprise for me, and I don't kind of want to say a treat because it's quite an uncomfortable read in many ways, and I like that. Like, this book really unflinchingly looks at white privilege, and as many readers who read this book will have it, it really kind of does that to you, and that's the whole point, and I think it's brilliant for doing that. We need books that make us feel uncomfortable and make us see the stories of people who feel very unseen. And yeah, I thought this was, and actually seeing and unseeing and art all kind of links up, I guess. But yeah, I thought this was great and a real surprise. So we have that. Now I'm going to take two books with me because, as I think I've mentioned, I'm leaving the Persians till last because I think that's going to be one of my favourites. So I'm packing Dream Hotel by Laila Lalami, which I think is going to be the one I read first because I'm going to be in a hotel, so I thought that would be apt for, well, reading in a hotel. Why not? Why don't I just over-explain and overthink verbally in front of you all? I'm in a whirlwind and I won't be able to edit this, so I might just leave this completely unedited and you see the manicness sometimes of my chats. And also Amma, which I have yet to read from the long list by Saraid de Silva, which is meant to be a big multi-generational sort of saga, starting off with a 10-year-old murdering her abuser. So yeah, killing her abuser, not murdering necessarily. Anyway, I don't know, not ready yet. So those are the two books that are going with me. But I will be having a break, which is quite good because I feel like I need the dust to settle on this a little bit more, as I will be doing the whole long list, I think, once I've finished. I was planning on putting my predictions up quite quickly, but I don't think I will. Anyway, I need to go, need to pop these in my case, and I will catch up with you all anon. If you fall in, I will die laughing. What a view. A room with a view. I'm in the motherland. Got the goods. We've got the goods. Morning everyone, it's my birthday. I'm 43 and we're just on our way to go topless. Although someone is very slow behind me. Yeah, getting topless already. We're on a topless bus.
Bridle mount. Stop your boots.
Oh, Nana. Hello everyone.
Hello.
It's Tuesday. We have just checked out of the Daffodil Hotel and Spa. We're back into Grasmere for the third and final trip to get some Grasmere gingerbread.
Which is dead fresh.
Oh yes, can't wait for that warm Grasmere ginger delight. Then going to go to a castle called
Sizer.
yeah, apparently, and also hopefully to a bookshop in Carnforth, which I can't seem to say. I want to call it Carnarvon, Carnarvon, but yeah, Carnforth. And that's the plan today, and then home to the menagerie. Oh. Have you got the goods?
I've got the goods.
Finished around 1585.
You love a spiral staircase, don't you? Just going to take you to a pond that has more frogs than I've ever seen in my entire life in it. Like, we're talking hundreds, get ready for it.
Last year, during his summer holidays, he did come up to the lakes.
Hi everyone, it is now Thursday afternoon. I haven't chatted to you since, I think, the Frog Odyssey / Frog Orgy content, which was Sizer, via Carnforth to go and see another bookshop. So I managed to get 3 bookshops in on my trip away. Came home and it was a bit of a dramatic 48 hours, all to do with this one here, who is now sleeping soundly. We came back, no sign of him, and there wasn't all day yesterday, and we started to just get really worried, and he then turned up really late. He's got, you can't see, but he's got all blood and like a really bad scrape on his face. He's lost all of his claws and he's lost a couple of teeth, and we've been to the vets today and they think that he must have got stuck or trapped somewhere and basically tried to literally claw his way out. He's absolutely fine now, as you can see. He's been very, very cuddly ever since he came home, very quietly and subduedly last night. But yeah, so it's not been my favourite 48 hours, and certainly not quite the turn of events I was expecting in my first few days of 43. I mean, to be fair, as I think I've mentioned on social media, I did almost get mauled by a swan on my 43rd birthday because I tried to make a new friend, but also got to do lovely things like have Grasma gingerbread, go in a pool that was actually an entire jacuzzi, which was like amazing, and go around Ambleside and bookshops, which you've seen. And thank you all for the birthday wishes. It was, yeah, just a little bit bittersweet to go through what we've gone through the last few days. Was meant to be going away tomorrow, have cancelled it, but have just tried to rebook it, but I don't know if it's gone through, so I'll check that in a little bit. But yeah, the vet said that he should be fine, and our neighbour's just going to check in on him more regularly. So yeah, hopefully after a little adventure he's doing okay. But yeah, thank you for all the birthday wishes. It was a lovely day, like I said, and then had that amazing frog. Like, I just couldn't quite get over that, frankly. Let's have a chat about books. I did buy a couple of books while I was away, but this is a Women's Prize Women's Prize for Fiction Longlist reading vlog. So let's chat to you about the two books that I've read since we last caught up. The first of which was The Dream Hotel by Laila Lalami. And I went into this a little bit nervous. I think I talked about this, a bit trepidatious, because in my head I don't like dystopic sort of sci-fi-ish novels. I blinking loved this. I thought it was really gripping. I loved how, I'm not going to say it was confusing. There's so much confusion in this book, but it doesn't read in a confusing way. It's set in the not too distant future where humans have become really reliant on AI. AI is big money, and data is like massive.
Not money, not capital. What's the other word that I want to use? Not bartering. That.
And we meet Sarah, who is staying in this facility. Some people call it a dream hotel, some people call it a prison, where she has she's ended up in there because she has been flagged that she has a high rating, that she may be about to commit a dreadful offence. And due to the powers of AI and the way that technology changes oh so subtly, but oh so much from sort of around now, that is something that you can be arrested for. Your dreams are analysed, your dream data is sold, but also flagged if you start to have maybe some, I would describe them as nightmares, but, you know, darker dreams, shall we say. And this book absolutely compelled me, whilst utterly freaking me out, making me really angry. I did think about fundamentally, actually, and the bureaucracy in that, and then this sort of dystopic bureaucracy. And I wondered if that's a theme of some of the books, like the frustration of the everyman. And you are very much an everyman with Sarah as she's trying to work out what the chuff is going on. That is the technical term. And the way that Laila Lalami brilliantly plays with this confusion, and you start to question people that the other, I don't want to say inmates, but I guess they kind of are inmates, the other people that she is within this facility with, the way you question some of the staff there, the way you question what's going on in the outside world. Sarah is predicted to do something awful to her husband. And so you also question what's going on with him. And as you sort of go back in time, whilst Sarah is, I think, over 200 days in there at the beginning, you get these different stories in the lead up, but also you get the moment where she gets off a plane, having been in London. She works in museums, and she's been over to the V&A, and she comes back, and there's this horrendous, tense set of chapters in her border control, I guess, but also looks at her family and how her father always kind of prepped them as immigrants that, you know, anything could happen, and she never thought it would. It's just so, I'm going to say this word, I don't say it often, it's visceral. And I think that word is quite often overused, but in this case, it's really, really very much how I felt. I was at first unsure if I was going to sort of fall in love with Sarah as a character, which I don't always have to like characters, but I want to know them. And at first I wasn't sure that I did know her. it felt quite, the writing to start off was a little bit clinical, but I think that's also part of it. And as you get to know her and her story, I was going to say there's clarity, but I don't want to spoil anything. But also what I meant to say is within here you have documents and little sort of snapshots that give you potential insight into what's going on or add to the fear or threat that you know, but Sarah doesn't. Oh, honestly, so much going on in here. And yeah, I was hooked by it and sometimes didn't want to leave the hotel I was in because I wanted to just go, excuse me, because I wanted to just carry on reading it. So yeah, I would highly, highly, highly recommend this. Sorry I didn't catch it midway, but I was just having too much of a lovely time. Now, I finished that. When did I finish it? So I finished this on Tuesday night, and then yesterday morning I started my penultimate, I can't quite believe that, penultimate read from the Women's Prize for Fiction Longlist, which, and I just want to throw this sort of caveat out there, I really, really, really enjoyed this book. If enjoyed is kind of the right word, but I thought this book was fab. I think I would have loved it even more if it hadn't been for me worrying about his nibs, who now looks like literally nothing has happened in the last 48 hours. Well, it's been a time. So anyway, the book is Amma by Saraid de Silva. And again, this was one that I knew very little about before going in, apart from, I think I read the blurb actually when I pulled this out of the box, when I opened the box of surprise long listees. When on the back it says 1951, Singapore, 10-year-old Josephina kills her abuser. That actually, I would say, happens about a quarter of the way in, because we start off in the, is it the 1990s? I don't know if it is, but it's in more contemporary time, shall we say, where we meet Josephina's great granddaughter Annie. And Annie has left New Zealand. She's turned up to London, and it's a brilliant opening scene. You really feel the sense of London, but she's turned up to see a man who she says is one of the most important men in her life, but she's never met them. And I was intrigued from the off. We then go back a generation to her mother, Sithara, and that's in the 1980s. And then we go back again to the aforementioned Josephine in the 1950s and what leads up to that incident and then what follows on. And we see how the ripples of that have passed through generations, either because of the situations that I suppose it's how it changed things so dramatically for that young girl and the entire family, and the ripples of that through generations, as well as I always think we do inherit stuff subconsciously from what our predecessors have gone through before, and this very much looks at that. It also looks at how well do we really know our parents, our grandparents, because they are mothers, fathers, grandfathers, grandmothers. I know that sounds super obvious, but what I mean is quite often they are those labels, and therefore we forget about the people behind them. I mean, one of the things that I absolutely loved about this book and made me very emotional reading it was the sense of love for a grandparent. And I loved I still have my dad's parents. They're still alive. I don't see them as often and didn't know them until I was 16. But the love that I had from my mum's parents, who sadly are no longer with us, was such a strong bond. I mean, they were 40 and 42 when I was born. Oh my God, I'm older than them now. Well, they were when I was born. That's weird. Moving on. I had such a strong bond with them. And so to read that and the love of a grandchild for a grandparent just really, really got me. At the same time as what I was saying about looking at the people behind those familial labels and almost the pedestals that we can put parents and grandparents on, whilst also looking at the real complexities of the relationships between them, particularly actually I would say children and their parents. That sounds really evasive. That sounds really vague. But I think one of the joys of this book is that, or for me, one of the joys of this book was just discovering these stories and what was missed and what was spotted and what was misread and what was misunderstood. And yeah, I really, really, really enjoyed this. It's got a vignettiness to it, which I also really liked in parts. But yeah, I am really, really excited to see what Saraid de Silva writes next. That always sounds such a cliche, doesn't it? But it's genuinely true. And one thing that I'm really, really thrilled about this long list is that it's introduced me to authors whose careers I can follow, but also whose backlog, but also whose back catalogue I can go back to, and that's been a real treat. But what I was going to say, the other thing that I think is fantastically done in this book is the sense of place. We go to, as I mentioned, London, we go to New Zealand, we go to Singapore, we also go to Sri Lanka and Australia, and every place has its own real sense of place. Sounds so daft, but it's so evocative. And yeah, I thought that was brilliant. Also, I like the fact that it's a queer novel in so many ways, but again, don't want to spoil anything for anyone. But yeah, really, 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 really like that. And like I said, would have loved it even more if I hadn't been worrying about him the whole time. So maybe this book that I'll head to and reread at some point. The last book that I have to read on the list, I've been saving the one that I think I'm going to love possibly the most, mainly based on the fact that Sarah Women has given it a quote. It is The Persians by Sanam Mahloudji, and Sarah Women says, an ambitious, glorious feat. 5 women's voices become one irresistible whole in this darkly funny, richly satisfying, wonderful debut. So yeah, this was one that I'm super duper excited for, and is going to be my last of the Women's Prize for Fiction Longlist reads. So I will get back to you when I've read some of it and let you know how I'm getting on. And then once I've finished it, I will wrap this vlog up, and then I'm going to have a little bit of a breather before I film my predictions, both of what 6 books I would personally shortlist, but also what I think might be shortlisted, because I do think they're a little bit different maybe. But well, I need to let the dust settle, but I haven't even finished this one yet, so I don't know why I'm talking about that now. But I'll be filming that on Monday. Anyway, yeah, that's the plan. So going to carry on sitting with this one and get cracking on that. Very long catch up, and not how I meant to do this vlog, but yeah, there we go.
This is ridiculous.
Morning everyone, it is Friday. I'm here with Mildred, and I thought I'd give you an update on how I'm getting on with The Persians, which I am over halfway through now. And this is the tale, well, it's a multi-generational family story about a family who are descended from, I think it's the Great Warrior in Iran, and everything has really changed. Well, when we start the book, I actually thought we were in New York, but we weren't. We're in some sort of skiing resort, which confused me. But we follow 5 different women within that family. So you have I'm going to do it in the order that we meet them. The first woman that we meet is Beta, and she has just had to go and get her auntie, now I'm going to get this wrong because there's too many names. That is one thing I will talk about. There's a lot of characters at first. She goes and gets her auntie Shirin, who has been mistakenly arrested for prostitution. So what a start that is. And it is a very dramatic, quite intense, lots of different names, all sorts going on at the beginning. I wasn't too sure about it. We then move into Sharon's storyline as she looks at her life when she had to leave Tehran, when things were looking like they were changing for the worse for her family, but also for the country. And I'm learning a lot around the history of Iran. Then we head to Elizabeth, who instantly, I loved her storyline. Her initial chapter, because they alternate throughout, although there's a few more of some at some points than others. Anyway, so we move to her mum, Elizabeth, and Elizabeth is kind of the matriarch of the family, and we hear about the story of her nose, which gets into a very unusual relationship, that's what I will say. But every time we're with Elizabeth, the book sort of lights up for me. Then we move on to Seema, who is one of her other daughters and Beta's mother, and get to know her. And then we head to Niaz, who is he's still with us. Sorry, it does get a bit confusing. Niaz is Shirin's daughter, who she, well, says chose to stay with her mother Elizabeth when they left, but she was only 6 years old, so there's a lot going on with that. And we follow them at various different points, putting together the patchwork of their family story, finding out lots of secrets, finding out what's gone on in Iran. And at the moment, I will say, I wasn't sure at first. I do think there may be a narrator too many, possibly, but let's see how we go, because we are alternating. And that said, you do get to see the characters differently through every different perspective of them. And I do possibly have a favourite right now, but I enjoy spending time with all of them. But I will say, if I'd only read the first chapter of this, I might not have headed further, because I did find it just very, very chaotic, and I'd be like, what the heck is going on? You're really thrown in. But then you slowly sort of gain your ground. It is making me think of a bit of a mixture between fundamentally the best bits and also Good Girl. It kind of is one of those books that meets in the middle of those two, really, because it is funny, it can be quite naughty, or there's a bit of drugs at the beginning. I was like, ugh, can't bother with that. There's also a very strange scene with a son and his naked mother. Shirin is a real character. There's a lot going on, and at first I was like, I don't know if I'm going to get on with this, but as it's gone on, I've warmed to it more and more and more, particularly Elizabeth. Anyway, that's where we are so far. I will get back to you when I have finished it. Oh, I thought I had a cup of tea here, but I don't. So I need to get another cup of tea, because my plan is, it's currently 7 a.m. and I'm just going to sit and read here until I finish the book, and then pack to go away and have a catch up with you before I leave and end the vlog there. This feels like it's been a really chaotic final vlog, speaking of chaoticness. But yeah, that's the beginning of that, and this is the end of this series of vlogs that I'm doing. But yeah, it's just been a bit of a random week with highs and lows and spills and thrills. Right, I'm gonna crack on with reading and finishing that, and I'll catch up with you later on before leaving for North Wales. Foster, you don't live here. Just a small reminder. Hey up everyone, so it is done. I have finished the Persians, and so by proxy have finished reading the Women's Prize for Fiction Longlist. I will sum up a little bit shortly, but before I do, I will just let you know that this book grew and grew on me, and is one of the reasons I'm really sort of pleased with myself, that I've given myself a bit of space, or I will be giving myself a bit of space. I'm all packed and ready to go as soon as I finish filming this, over the next few days, to let all of the books settle with me a bit more and see which ones grow on me, see which ones fade on me, and I will film my predictions video on Monday when I'm back, which I think I've said quite a few times in this video and alluded to. It's clearly been right on my brain. I feel like I've noticed that a lot when I've been editing. Anyway, yeah, I loved this. I got to enjoy each of the narratives more and more. I don't want to say that I enjoyed all of the women's stories, because some of them are very difficult to read. I definitely was lost in this family saga, and it has really opened my eyes to what has been going on in the world, and I guess what still is going on in the world. And I do love books that really highlight historical moments in cultures or countries that I don't know enough about, and this is very much one of those books. I love the way that this is very much all about the women's stories, and the men are very peripheral in a lot of ways. I don't think that's necessarily meant to be, I don't know, I feel like that's the right thing. This is about women's voices who haven't been heard, or this is depicting women's voices that haven't been heard. And I think the way that Sanam does that is phenomenal. I felt as it went on that, do I say juxtaposition, or do I mean that sort of, yeah, I guess the juxtaposition of humour with the tragic, but also the way this book looks at wealth and the way it looks at power and the way it looks at the opposite of those. And there are some moments with some of the characters where they are going through mirroring things but also completely polar opposite things, and I thought that was handled really brilliantly. It all felt oh so real after that chaotic start, which is interesting because quite often I find books will go towards a chaotic ending, and I don't feel like this one did. It just had that chaotic start that jarred with me a little bit, but then I got really, really into it, as I said. And I won't forget this book for a long time, and I will be recommending it to a lot of people. Not necessarily everyone, I don't think, or will I? Again, I think I need a little bit of time to think about it, but, and I've said this many a time before, I will definitely be heading to whatever Sanam writes next, because I did think this was great. I feel like I've not sort of summed it up enough, but at the same time I don't want to spoil these. In fact, in this video I have felt a little bit like I've lost the rhythm with that sort of, I think because in the middle of the video I hadn't caught up on books in the middle as I'd intended to do with all these vlogs, but hopefully it's been all right for all of you. Hopefully you've enjoyed it, and hopefully you enjoyed this whole process now that we are at the final stages of the third and final of the reading vlogs for the Women's Prize for Fiction Longlist 2025. Here, oh, that's the thumbnail I was going to do then. I'm not meant to do that. Just hold on, I'm going to show you the books that we have discussed in this video, just to do a quick recap, and then I'll do a little recap on the long list overall. Ish is a little teaser, or where I'm feeling right now and how that might change. I think I'm also going to record my ranking of the books as I try to pick my personal top 6 plus the 6 that I think will be shortlisted by the judges, because I do pretty much definitely now think they're going to be 2 different lists. I mean, they always are anyway, like it's not like I'm psychic, but you know what I mean. Anyway, so we started off with Somewhere Else by Jenni Daiches, which sadly I didn't enjoy, but I feel like someone else would. Sorry, that was a really bad pun. But yeah, the writing wasn't quite there for me compared to the rest of the long list. Well, I've not read one of the books on the long list, but I talked about it in the previous vlog. I'm not going to keep going on about it. I've said my piece. I'm done. Or I'm not, because if that gets shortlisted, I'll have to be saying my piece more. Anyway, then we headed to... Gosh, this all feels really like a long time ago now, because it's been a bit of a dramatic week, or it's felt like a very dramatic week for me personally. Anyway, then we headed to Good Girl by Aria, Aber, which, polar opposite, I was so excited for Somewhere Else and didn't enjoy it that much. I was quite nervous about this one and really, really enjoyed it, with caveats. I feel like, yeah, there's one character that was in it too much and quite often went on too many arty talks for me, but some of the writing in here is just stunning. Then I read Dream Hotel, which completely, pun not intended, captivated me and held me throughout and terrified me and really made me think. Then we have Amma, which I really enjoyed. Probably would have a little bit more if it hadn't been for this like Oscar drama this week. By the way, he's doing fine, and our neighbour who comes and feeds them is going to spend a lot more time than she usually does with them. She spends quite a bit of time with them anyway because she loves the cat. So anyway, but yeah, he's doing super duper well. But yeah, I thought this was a great multi-generational saga, and the way that Saraid writes about place is fantastic. I also love how she writes about the love between grandchildren and their grandparents. That still makes me feel quite emotional. I think also because we've watched the final series of Big Boys. If you haven't watched it, it's a TV show by Jack Rook on Channel 4 here in the UK, and it is just wonderful. It's one of those TV shows that makes you laugh ridiculously, naughtily laugh, but also cry with loveliness, but also cry with utter heartbreak. It's so good. And there's a grandparent storyline that got me this week. Also, I think I've just been a little bit more emotional, partly because of birthdays, partly because of missing cats. Anyway, last but not least, another family saga, The Persians, which I was just talking about. And one thing I meant to say is there's a couple of chapters in here that for me are award-winning chapters. And I've said this before, and I need this book to sell because I think overall I do feel like this is potentially one of my faves. But there are certain books that I've read in previous, why am I saying previous years? There are books that I've read previously in my reading life, that's what I wanted to say, where they have, like, there'll be a chapter or two where I'm just like, let that win all the awards just for those chapters, and there are some of those in here, and I forgot to mention that when I've caught up with you about it. But yeah, this is another one that I'm going to be thinking about a lot. So there we are. That is me having read all of the Women's Prize for Fiction Longlist 2025 by one book. Well, two technically, because I didn't finish somewhere else. I will be, what am I doing? I will be back on Monday to go through all the books and whether I would put them on my personal shortlist, yes or no. The post-it notes are going to be back as of old when me and Mum used to do it together. And then I will talk about what 6 I think maybe the judges will put through. I'm saying that like I can predict what I'm predicting. I think it could all change between now and Monday, to be fair. But yeah, I'm going to head off for a weekend away. I hope you're all doing super duper well. I hope you've enjoyed these vlogs. Do let me know in the comments down below. If you would like more savage shenanigans before Monday, you can head to my Instagram, my Patreon, my Blue Sky. And as it's just for my birthday, if you want to head to my wish list, that's down below. And yeah, I hope you're all doing super duper well. I hope you're reading something fab. I'd love to know your thoughts on these books if you've read them. And yeah, we can chat what you would like to see on the shortlist when I do my predictions on Monday. Right, I'm waffling on now, so I'm gonna go. Bye.